And we're live, and we're back on the original channel. We are here with Carol Linden, and we are going to go through NI in the ENFP, Model G. And so we've got here, these are some of the slides we want to try and get through. And we've got at the top here in these sort of like these pinkish slides, these are sort of like the control function in different types. And so we can give this as an example of what the control function is like in different types to help explain the position, because it is quite an important function in terms of what goes on inside somebody's mind, and it's people outside don't necessarily see this thing going on. So for example, in the theory, INTP isn't INTJs and INFJs, as in ILI and I.E.E, apparently have a load of extroverted intuition going on inside their heads that we just don't see. But so they have tons and tons of ideas, they just ignore them. So now, get off that and get back to the... Jonathan doesn't want to see that guy that looks like him.
He does look like him.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see which expression. That one is more puzzled than the one I chose. Right. Right. So... we'll go. Oh yeah, this is future hangout plans. If people pause that, then these are kind of the hangouts that we've got lined up. So you can pause that. We're not going to talk about it too much. This is the overview of Model G. So as everyone can see, the valued functions slightly highlighted. This, can you believe that I misspelt Halt? So, which was a previous, so, and this is now called the break function. So, where we go? Right, so what we can do here is just go over NI, and then I'll show you how it's used in ENFP and ENTP. So, and this will give you a little, it's quite similar to SOCIONICS, but SOCIONICS has sort of like a narrow view of NI as intuition of time. So I'll let you read through that, folks, and get your comments on it.
What does as a base function mean? Is that the lead function?
Yeah.
Okay. Never noticed them being lazy or inactive.
Well,
I think it's all going on the inside.
Well, when I asked Haley about this, and she's actually quite an open person at close range, and it's this thing where INTJs are very productive, but they only have a limited amount of energy. So if you're judging them by the amount of stuff they get done, you would say, oh, no, they're not lazy. It's just that a lot of the times when they're in their NI moments, you know, they're by themselves and not getting a lot done. So it's like they limited amount of energy, but they spend it very well. Do you think that's fair, Jonathan? Go on then, someone talk. Go on. I think that's Maria.
I was going to say that, first of all, INTJ are excellent at delegating. So the number of things they get done is impressive, but like a little busy work that has to do with them is oftentimes performed by somebody else. And besides, they always wait for the moment when the this particular thing takes the absolutely least amount of energy. That's why it's hard to ask them to do something right away or like whenever you need it, because for many types, including INTJ, things are done when they are most comfortably done.
Right. I'll just say that Maria's husband resembles the INTJ type pattern. And what she said there about delegating is also captured in the way Kersey describes the NTJs as coordinators. And so you've got sort of the ultimate coordinator in ENTJ, and then you've got, and Kersey ultimately called it the mobilizer, because he changed it from field marshal, and then he called INTJ the arranger, and he changed that from mastermind, and then he had the NTP as the constructors of systems and models and theories. Right then. So,
Maria, I will contribute. My stepfather had INTJ preferences, and my uncle is probably ESTP, led with extroverted sensing. And my uncle would come up to visit, and my stepfather would have waiting for him all the things that need to be repaired and attended to, because he, as an INTJ, had no interest whatsoever in all these physical things. So they're outside, and my Uncle Ron is fixing the broken side view mirror on the car. And he says, "Come over here, Tom. Let me show you how to do this." And Tom says, "I don't need to know how to do that." And my uncle said, "Sure you do. Next time it breaks, you'll know how to fix it." And he says, "I have no interest in fixing it. Next time it breaks, I'll call you and you'll come up here and you'll fix it for me."
now,
And
Jonathan,
it's not that he's a lazy man. He just had no interest in hands-on fix-it stuff. He very much appreciated my extroverted sensing uncle who could do all those things for our household.
Yeah, well, INTJ have the following attitude: if I really need to, I will be able to do it. But do I need to do everything?
Right. I think Jonathan wants to say something. Jonathan's grinning.
yes, he had a big smile.
I totally agreeing with your uncle, with your whatever.
Stepfather.
Yeah, your father. Yes. Yeah.
How
I
would
wish
it
I could do that.
How would it compare with ISTJ? Are they also? Because Socionics would say the SI is about comfort and internal bodily harmony. And I was trying to think about this the other day, about trying to reconcile their behavior with their theorized inner state. And Dario wrote something about doing something at a comfortable pace. And I wonder if that's the thing for the SJs. They want to do things at a comfortable pace. They don't want to put themselves in a situation that is challenging. Whereas the SPs, they love a challenge. They're stimulated by a challenge. Whereas I think the SJs, they don't like to be put in that place where it's challenging.
They want to do it the right way. They want to do it carefully. They want to do it the way it should be done and the way we know it works. That means doing it right. I think an ISTJ quote would be, "Measure twice, cut once."
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
And I would also say with SJs is that I had a tendency, and I think other people did, to like put too much of the SJ behavior in the SI. And they need to realize that it's paired with the TE and the FE. And you especially see that in the SFJs and the STJs with that TE. Because if you look in an organization and compare the behavior of STJs and NTJs, Kurz's role variance, which is sort of like the best job for a type, or the job that's best suited to that type's talents, he would have the STJs as the monitors, and he would have the NTJs as the coordinators. And so you can see in a lot of situations where those functions those roles would overlap. So maybe the NTJs with the larger big picture thinking, and then the STJs with overlap in there. So you can see the importance of the TE going on.
Yeah,
right.
I think I have a good example about ISTJ. I have an ISTJ friend, and I once complained that the stroller that I used to like push some stuff and sometimes the kids, and it got a flat tire, and I asked her if she knows how to change a flat. And she said she'll look into that, and in a little while she came to visit with a new tire and also her own bicycle that she also wanted to repair, because it's kind of easier to do two things at the same time than taking out all the equipment needed for just one repair and then for another separately. And also, like, she needs to make a quick run, like while fixing her bike, she needed to do a quick run to a store, which she did very quickly because I babysat her kids while she was out. So she did it the most efficient way.
So
efficiency. ISTJ be very big on efficiency. Go ahead, Ben.
So you can see, Carol, that you went to a conference and like all those ENFPs that stuck their hand in the hair about being married to an ISTJ, you can see how that combination works well together.
Pragmatically, from a perspective of handling all the different pieces of life, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can.
As a sort of married team.
Yeah.
It
I have no
balances
intention
it
of
out.
marrying one, but yes, I get why it's pragmatic.
Right.
Ben, excuse me. I'm not slamming ISTJs. My mother's an ISTJ,
Now that
so
has a big
I
effect.
think I've had a lifetime full of ISTJ, and I'm kind of good now.
Yeah, in fact, it was Maria that drew my attention to that when she said that the type of your parents can have a big effect on how you view what is supposed to be a jewel.
Yeah, I can. I'm with Carol in that my father is my jewel, so I think I'm pretty much done with them too.
Yeah. So a way of getting to the jewel, Carol, is just when you're working with the MBTI code, just reverse all the letters.
So we talking about the 8th one then? Oh, I'm sorry. What do you?
So, for instance, if you got ENFP, then the opposite of the you go ISTJ.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. And another way of looking at it is the 4 valued functions are in reverse.
But you all speak, as BB taught me, you all speak the same. What's another word for language? Variant dialect. You all speak the same dialect. Like every one of the functions is in the same attitude. But you have them in a different preference order, so you go about your life a different way. But when you go to that language, you speak the same dialect. We all have these 2 types. We all introvert sensing, extrovert thinking, introvert feeling, extrovert intuition. We just do it in a different preference order, but those are all those we speak the same dialect. I mean, that's pretty. I think that's pretty cool.
There's an idea that Linda Bowen's developed, but she did it at the Linda Bowen's and Chris Montoya, because I think he's got a background in English, and he looked at the community and the words that and basically the types that share the same valued functions. And so it's similar idea to SOCIONICS. So you've got Alpha Quadra, which is so using the MBTI codes, SFJs and NTPs, Beta Quadra, which is NFJs and STPs, Gamma Quadra, which is NTJs and SFPs, and Delta Quadra, which is NFPs and STJs.
And what was the first one? The only one I missed was the first one.
Alpha is NTPs and SFJs. And Linda has written about how she communicates in similar ways to her ESFJ friend. She put that in an article. But we need. So, Carol, how much time do we have with you? Because then I can adjust the pace at which we go at.
It's 4:12. I can stay on until. Excuse me. Another hour and 15 minutes. Is that enough?
Right. Okay. So, Sana, this definition of NI, is that good enough for you?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean good enough?
Sometimes sometimes you can be critical, but actually come in with a criticism that's actually very valid, and that adds to the meaning, because there might be something in there that they say, oh, I think it should say this bit and this bit. Jonathan, are you happy with it as well?
I don't know. I would say so, yes. I agree with.
Right.
Never agree with the ways painfully.
And is it? This is a little bit by the wayside, but does that the way it's used in INFJ there? Do you agree with that as well?
Well, it doesn't do it.
The reason why I asked this is that Bradley brought up an interesting point about the definition of FI versus how a type uses it. So, when an INFP uses FI, there's more of an emphasis on values than in the definition of FI. It's at least in Socionics, Carol, they still try to separate it out. It's almost as if the values are something that accompany the FI. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off track. I'll slap my wrist.
No, wait. I think you're onto something there. If I can add to that quickly, BB would say. In fact, the first conference I went to him, it was arranged. There were 8 tables in the room, and you went to discuss. It was extroverted into. We did the 8 functions in the order of his preferences, And the first table was, if that was your first function, you sat at that table. If it was your second one in order, etc., down to the 8th. And then you discuss, there were like 60 people there. You discuss the function at hand, because he describes it, but the descriptions of the functions really match best the person who uses that function in the dominant. So the people would discuss the function based on where it was in their preference order. And then we'd go around the room and let all 8 tables report out. And what you heard is how the description is really like the dominant people who have it dominantly use it, but their use of it changes dramatically as you go around the room to the people at the last table for whom it's their 8th function, their demonic function. And it was a fascinating way to study it. There's one thing to define it, which is usually defined in the dominant position, but it's not like that in all 8 positions. So I think BB would support what you're saying.
Another reason why he might like SOCIONICS is that the SOCIONICS bigot in me might say, been there, done that. But it's sort of like, because it lays it out what happens in different positions. So basically, so the way you described it, so basically there was one table for the function in the lead position, then there was another table for those people who had it second, and then one who had it third and fourth, and so on.
There were 8 tables the whole time.
Right then, interesting.
And we were all discussing the same function at the same time, and then we went around the room, reported out, and you heard how that function operated. People experienced it differently based on where it was in their preference order. It was absolutely fascinating way to spend 4 days. It was phenomenal.
So just a way to like nail down this definition and see if it's good. And Sandra said it was, so, but is that also accurate for you, Sandra, the way it describes it in the first function for I.E.E.?
Yeah.
Okay. Right then, excellent. That allows us to move on. Right, so this is reportedly this is how it's used in ENFP and ENTP. So I'll let everyone take that in.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and would BB say something similar?
Works for my type.
Yeah, I think that works. I like I said, my INFJs are all over my life, and whereas what comes out of my mouth is I immediately jump to, oh, well, we could do this or we could do that, or this could be, or, you know, maybe what was the pattern we're seeing here. I automatically launch into options, whereas the INFJ is quiet and then lets the introverted intuition bubble up, and that's the answer. And it's the very opposite of me saying, well, we could do this, we could do that. You know, I lay out a buffet table for you. We could do this, we could do that. INFJ goes, this is the right thing. This is it.
Right. Right, I was just letting Rachel know. So that's good. We're in agreement there. That's good. So now we can see the trend of this idea that people have got a lot of stuff going on. Right, so I'll be clear about it. So the big N. So some people get it, some people don't. I love that. That stuff on the channel. There we go. Look at that. You've got all these videos. Jonathan with Catherine, Chinook Favre, and then we've got the videos with Victor, and then we've got all the type profiles there by Jungian function. There's some videos with David Mark Kersey, A to Z of guests, and then various other things. There, John has done that one. Right, a little bit of the theory, and then we can. I did this one again, and I took the stuff out about the tote model because it wasn't really relevant to it. Victor was only sort of going, well, the tote model's got 4 stages. Why can't I have 4 stages? It didn't actually correspond. But so what I did is I switched that out and I put in the stuff with the bead model to help the people, because if somebody already knows the bead model, then they can understand this through similarities.
Sure.
So we've done the break function before, equivalent to the trickster. And Victor just thinks that, so in the case of ENFP, if they get too much TI and too much NI, then it can be stressful for them. Now, next time, Maria, the next time you get a chance to chip in, you could maybe explain what TI break looks like in ENFP because in my experience, oh, you're here. What does TI break look like in ENFP, Maria?
Well, sometimes it's just using words not quite in their place. Sometimes it's a very conscious use of break function, because people like to be sort of rebellious in that regard. They use it as a tool. Like I remember an ENFP speaker saying that to be effective in treating patients, you need to change the rules. So it's like conscious work against the rules, because rules represent TI. So that's one of the examples. But sometimes it's just being tricked with in TI matters. Like the student I was in class with who drew, who was told to draw oxygen formula, and he drew like O and 2 lines. And when the teacher asked what it means, he said oxygen equals oxygen. So and so he had enough aside to memorize the formula, but the logic of it kind of evaded him.
Yeah, and just for those people that don't know, it means a double bond. Right.
So it may be a very creative use, and like very, I mean, they can make a very good use of their break function, but sometimes it can be tricky.
Right.
BB would say, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need our shadow functions, but we don't live in a perfect world, and our shadow functions are actually help defend us in a world where unfair, inappropriate things happen. And he said it's appropriate use of a trickster function. Like the trickster function puts people in a double bind. You need to stop what they're doing because it's not appropriate. So you put them in a double bind to make them hard for them to continue. Or you use the which SOCIONICS function, the 6th one, to stop them in their tracks because what's going on is not appropriate or not fair. And it's not that we consciously do that. We quite unconsciously go grab unconscious functions to help us out in a world that's not perfect, where everything's not going right.
Can you briefly explain how that would work in an INTP?
So your trickster is
6th and the 7th.
Is introverted. Yeah. Is introverted feeling, right?
That would be the demonic.
Yeah. I'm going to put it on screen so that you can, because for each one I've written what the equivalent is.
Sure.
So Maria, while we've got you here, you have a theory about how the break function is not so weak and that it can be used to solve problems. Because that goes beyond the popular conception of the break function as does.
There's a school of SOCIONICS which has the I think it's Kalinowski's and Renian school, which have sort of different explanations for functions, and they define them somewhat differently. And one of the things they say is that launch function is the problem area, and while break function is a problem-solving area.
That sounds like in alignment with what BB's saying, is that the shadow functions have an appropriate purpose, and they do, and it's because there's a. Yes, he didn't use the word problem solving, but the examples he gave were stopping something from happening and getting things back right again. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think ESFP and ENFP can play with words to get out of a difficult situation, for instance. But sometimes they can get also tangled in their own wording. So that's the trickster part. But basically, they also, just like Carol said, and she put it beautifully, just like I read in BB's works, that when a person needs defense, that's where shadow functions are very useful. My experience is that if you, for some reason, if you want to continue interacting with the person, it's best to try to use the act on the functions that are their non-shadow functions. Because when you get into the area of their shadow functions, they kind of they can shrug you off. It's where they have less positive, act in a less positive way.
I would agree with that. I can give an example, Maria and Ben, of I'm sorry, Jonathan wants to speak, and then I'll go.
No, I don't. I was just scratching my back.
Oh gosh, I thought you were waving your hand. I'll give you an example of an ENFP using introverted thinking as a trickster function, and I can't see this. A friend who's a type expert saw it in me. She said that she's seen me do coaching sessions, and she said, I use my trickster function all the time with clients. She said, when I help a client reframe something, they're thinking about it a certain way that's bad, and I reframe it as the challenge that's causing them to rise the occasion, and it brings a gift. It's called the reframing coaching. And she said that's absolutely you using introverted thinking to redefine the situation and help them redefine it to help them get unstuck and move forward. I will admit to you, I'm so not real adept at that function. I couldn't have seen that myself. So I appreciate her being able to see it and witness it and then teach me about it, because I really struggle with conscious use of it. Obviously, I naturally use it as the trickster function in coaching to reframe, but I wasn't conscious that that's what I was doing. I just knew reframe helped.
Interesting. So what about for an INTP, like when they use the trickster SE function? I guess I'm just not aware of SE being used that way in myself, because oftentimes what happens is, like, I'm not seeing certain things that are literally right in front of my face because I guess I'm relying on SI more, like I have a sense of that. According to past experience, this is how it should look, and then it's different. So then I'm not actually seeing what's in front of me.
That's you definitely choosing SI, which is your third function.
What?
That makes total sense. Your SI is your third function. It would be your preference. You would go there instead of to extroverted sensing. That makes total. I'm hearing, you're being drawn into SI there.
Right. But when you say like SE, like the trickster function is like seeing this other perspective or other side. I guess I'm trying to relate it to my own type.
That's introverted thinking. We've got to come up with what would SE be in trickster mode. Maria, do you have any thoughts on what extroverted sensing would look like in trickster?
I heard an explanation that while INFP try to hide their weaknesses, INTP try to hide their strengths. So they pretend to be weaker than they are.
That might be because
it may be. I can only think of a fairy tale example, like Rumpelstiltskin.
I can
preparing to be weak and in trouble.
I can see that with INTP because they fear escalation because they can see where it could go.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Wojtek once mentioned about getting involved in a fight. Oh, I could get a brain injury. I thought, I never thought about that. That one's another downside between, because I was thinking, even if you beat the guy up, then it's not going to go, oh, you are the greater man. The guy could come back with other fellas and beat you up, or they could get the police, or there's loads of these bad options that can happen. And so,
Ben, I think you need to stay away from pubs and what y'all call football games.
I already do, because I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, don't put yourself in that situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is, seeing the consequences. That's what it's like for you, Laura.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. Maybe I'm not quite as paranoid about that. I think for me, it's kind of more like, well, if you say that you're really strong at this, then you're kind of always being pressured to deliver that. And
It's
so
a
kind of like,
it's a
never
protective
try
mechanism.
more, you know for sure you can deliver. So it's like, if you say I'm really great at this, then you're expected to prove yourself. You're always expected to prove yourself and be responsible. And if you're pretend to be a little weaker, you can.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be protective and defensive, trying to prevent problems and pressures you didn't welcome. I can see that.
And I think it also relates to break SC2 and Model G, because I'm an LII in Model G, so
yeah, I've got that on screen.
Not wanting all that pressure all the time.
Yeah. I can also say from personal experience that when I had the coworker who was kind of above me in position, he never talked to me like he was.
Oh, that's
he
good.
Kind of talked in a friendly manner, and he was always like asking for a favor when he needed something done.
Sounds very FE of him to me.
Excellent.
Well, it's just that the fact that he was my boss, well, technically, was either not something that he wanted to push, or something that he wasn't even want to be aware of.
Maria, this also comes through an interaction style, because ISFP, ISFJ, INFP, and INTP are all accommodating and cozy and behind the scenes in Linda Bounds' interaction styles.
Exactly.
For those people, when they heard about rules or about TI, some people might be a little bit skeptical about that. All I'll say is, who wrote the Declaration of Independence? INTP, Jefferson. Who helped create the Constitution? INTP, James Madison Jr. People need to remember the junior. Right. So
well, can I say more to it? I don't think though that INTPs think of them as rules. I think they think of them as principles.
Yes.
And principles are like divine, are like bigger than rules, because they govern the universe and are universally true.
Yes.
Right. It's more important than like the bathroom rules, right? It's like principles, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, it's different charge of TI.
Yeah, I mean, look at a couple of INTPs here where Victor's put overvoltage on this block leads to collapse of the mind, just as monetary inflation needs to collapse of the economy. And then I added a bit as well, increases supply money and or credit, CP at the shift. So it's like we're both getting, but in Victor's case though, I know they had a high inflation in Russia, like things increasing about 1,000 times in price. I don't know if they had that in the Ukraine as well. But probably did. So that's probably why he wrote that bit. But I'll just say Dario loved that bit. The libertarians love that bit because we believe in sound money. Anyway, enough of that. Right. Right, we've done that. This is... Anyway, so we've been talking about the break function, which is great. And I don't know how to lift this and put it into the that hangout that we did on the break function. But I wonder if I digressed in that hangout about the control function, then I could switch them around. Right, but we are still talking about the inflation avoidance block, so it is relevant. So the control function, the idea here is there's stuff there about maybe you're coaching your dual. So in the case of INFJ, MBTI code might be like, could offer some ideas to help the ESTP. In the case of ENFPs, it would be using some NI to help guide the ISTJ. Maybe the ISTJ could be a little bit blinkered, and the INFJ would help see a different perspective. Is that your... wait a minute. Was that your case, Carol, with your mother? Did you feel that you opened some opportunities for her to see some opportunities?
My brain is tripping over something here. Help me. control? Help me to correlate that to my type stuff. What does control refer to?
Well, you've got opposing personality, so it's the opposing personality in ENFP, so it's going to be NI.
Oh, the fifth function, exactly.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
NI. What my experience of NI in the fifth position is, it's very special to me. I feel like I have no control over it whatsoever. It just floats in or doesn't, and I can meditate, I can do whatever, but I have no control over making it happen. When it does happen, when it first starts happening when I'm younger, I got it, but I didn't trust it. And then something would happen that told me I really was right. And then I was pissed at myself because I hadn't trusted myself. So as I've gotten older, I've learned to really trust and value that information that comes from introverted intuition. But at first, I didn't trust it, and now I get it. And I wish I could control it better. I'd love to have it come up more often, but it comes up when it does. I'm not in control of it, but I really value it.
So, do you think that this bit is true for you? Number 3, Carol. The actions for which the person is closely monitoring, it is very sensitive about it. The type thinks a lot.
I don't guess I resonate with closely monitoring, but seriously, my spiritual side happens a lot, I think, between the FI and the NI. I think they're both involved in my spirituality. And I don't talk about that a lot, except in places like this, but that's a core of me, is being a spiritual entity, and thinking that's important about us is that we're spiritual entities. So maybe that's right, and maybe it's just so obvious to me it's not even apparent to me I'm closely monitoring it.
Well, maybe in future, here's an idea. You could do a type and faith video with Jonathan.
Okay.
Because Jonathan did a video with me where he talked about his Catholic faith. Right.
You know, I think we've got to look this up, Ben. I think Walter... No, there is a book. I think Otto Kroger wrote it. I think Otto Kroger wrote a book on type and spirituality. The different ways the different type preferences prefer to exercise religion or express their spirituality, and it's type related.
Right. So this is a diagram, and I think this is quite good overview of Carl Jung. And
who did this?
I have no idea, but it's probably this austincleon.com thing.
There you go.
Right, so don't sue us. We're promoting your work. So what I'll do...
I love him sitting there in the suit, smoking the pipe, going memories, dreams, reflections. That's cool. That was the name of a book.
Mate, was it a book on... was it a Jungian book?
I own that book. I mean, that's the name of one of his books.
Here's an interesting point. God does not equal church.
Yeah, God equals experience. I think Jung used introverted intuition. I think he led with introverted intuition, and I think that's where his spirituality came from. It was a very much sense of connecting with a sense of oneness and of the other and of overcoming the boundaries. And that sounds very NI to me.
Yeah, I'm just moving this around so that people can pause it at home. Because oh, that's a bit rude. I'll just move away from that. I have to I might have to bump up the audience rating for this.
I evidently missed what you're talking about.
Well, if you look carefully. Bottom right.
Oh, talking about Freud?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. We're moving swiftly on, folks. So this is it for... And what you'll notice here is this is the social mission block of INTP in terms of... I know you're thinking, where's the NE there, Ben? But in Model G, where you've got the creative function, the SOCIONICS, so the lead and then the SOCIONICS of INTP. But so we're done TI. So we're going to go through these. We're going to go through these. So Carol, what do you think about that one in position number 1? Keeps track of the vision of future others have.
I don't know that I use it to keep track of a vision others have. I don't know that makes much sense to me. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Number 2 makes a whole lot of sense, except that I hate being late, but that's part of my Southern FE going on. So I actually come early because I think being late is so rude. But irritated, yeah. But it tries to build far-reaching plans for the future. Yeah, you have to change it because reality doesn't always go with your NI. So you have to adjust as you go along.
Plus, you might have another idea in the next 5 minutes.
Oh, it was so terrible. I had clients on Wednesday and I sent them the handout Monday night, and I shouldn't have done that because of course I could not keep my hands off of it so I changed the slides, but I couldn't change the handout because I can't keep from tweaking it and making it better. Absolutely. There's always a better way to do it, and I can always see something to make it better. Prone to jumping the gun, although he gives timely information about the emerging trends to others. This is very interesting. Isn't good at planning an event in terms of time. Does that mean I'm not very efficient at it?
I think it might mean that you might be unrealistic about how long something's going to take.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm horrifically
underestimated. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, because I'm horrifically bad about that. And I think it's because for someone with an intuitive preference, doing the thing is just an idea. And ideas are like that. Boom, there's the idea. Yeah. And I think somebody with a sensing preference also has a much better idea of how long something would take because it's a real thing. And to me, it's just an idea. So, yes, I have to work at not being unrealistic about how much can get done.
Go on, Jonathan.
I was wondering about making a passive-aggressive comment about Catherine and her classes and some of the videos of them, because she may be an FP, and if she is, that would apply here because she has basically there's a certain amount of time we've got to talk about. I'll cover our whole class. It's a miracle that we managed to do.
She says she's ESTP, Jonathan.
No, she's not sure what it was. Ben suggested that she's ESTP.
ENFP, kind of between ENFP and ENTP.
I think she said
it seems to be dominant.
EXTP.
She hasn't.
I never heard that.
Well, we can go over that in the next when we do a Zoom event with her, because what I plan to do is to go through the SE checklist to see how she scores at it for the immersing yourself in present context stuff.
I could have sworn she said she was ESTP because I was absolutely astonished that an ESTP was doing what she was doing and at the level she was doing it.
That might be me. That might be my negative.
Ben said that she may be ESTP, whereas I think her original typing of ENFP is correct.
However,
especially going by this plenty of time thing.
But there's also this thing where Dario has shown that people's brains can change so that they resemble more the activity of their dual, and it might just be that Catherine's just decades of experience in the role.
Yeah.
Also, she said that her father is an 8, so her father might have been ESTP for all we know.
That could rub off on her. Yeah. So
yeah, because she doesn't say this 8.
So, Carol, apparently here, Victor's sort of defined NI by how it's used in INTJ and INFJ as like two versions of it. So, do you agree that INTJs use one of those more than the other? They'll use both, but do you think they tend to use more one than the other? And which one do you think they might use more?
I'm sorry, what are we juxtaposing? Use which one more than which other?
Intuition of the past or intuition of the future?
So, as Behrens would describe it, it's like introverted intuition doesn't even live on the timeline. They are above the timeline in a place where time doesn't really exist. So they're all about the future, and time's kind of not real, and they live out of time, really. That's how she would describe it, which it would make doing things in a timely way kind of difficult. I can understand that.
What I could say is, in Kurz's mastermind profile, he starts off by saying that the mastermind is very good at contingency planning. So it's like thinking of all the things that can go wrong and then what to do in that case. So you could
Right.
say that that's like that corresponds with Ni minus. So Jonathan, you looking at these two, do you think you're more Ni plus than Ni minus? Do you think this is true that Victor has?
I do agree that I'm more NI plus than NI minus, because the cynicism of INTJs can be very annoying. Although I am good at both, I think. It's almost like INTJs, they focus too much on the problem, whereas I'm thinking of the solution. And I want to punch them.
Your Scottishness coming through there. So Sana,
I will also say that I think Carl said something about, or one of you said something about finishing things in a timely manner, or not being able to. It's because I can say that I can have a project like a written assignment for a class or something, or an article I want to write. I'll have a rough idea of what I want to say in my head weeks in advance, and I will get it done in the absolute last moment without fail. Like give me 2 months, and I swear I will get it done in that very last day of the very last month.
Oh.
And it's exhausting. I actually, just particularly in university in my last year, that was a disaster. When it came to writing my dissertation, which was 10,000 words, I was totally burnt out because I left it too long, even though I roughly knew what to do, and just couldn't bring myself to get it done. Painful.
Jonathan, that sounds like what the Myers-Briggs Step 2 calls pressure prompted versus early starting, that you really can't find the internal energy to do it until it gets close to deadline. That's a very real phenomenon. It's a neurological thing. It's not your imagination. It's very true.
So,
I know. And it's painful.
But milestones are the answer. The answer is you set milestones along the way to keep you from crashing and burning on a long-term deadline.
So, Sana, when you look at these two definitions of NI on the screen, do you agree with them? Do you think you do the plus more than the minus, or?
I think I did both of them, and I don't have a problem with the ILI NI either.
Right.
I do often think about the past, but I think my overall view is more NI plus. Which is funny because I'm not a very optimistic person, but I do kind of have this optimistic expectation.
Something that Maria told me is that the higher the function is in somebody's stack, the more somebody can use both sides of it. And what you said there highlighted that.
Yeah, well, I would say it also depends on subtype and whether not just how high in the stacking, but also like how strong it is. It has developed. For instance, my NI is not very strong because I'm creative subtype, so my NI minus is horrible.
Well, I find myself using a lot of the plus and the minus NI. I prefer to use the plus side, but then I find myself kind of needing to use, NI minus, and maybe that kind of relates to, Enneagram because I'm a 6, so kind of look for bad things that might happen, but
yeah,
I do use a lot of both plus and minus.
Right, so we could actually in future we could have an off-air hangout where we go through the subtypes of the INFJ with Sana and Jonathan, the Victor's subtype profiles, because they're not available to the public. So sorry, folks, that's not going to be recorded. Right, so apparently this is how ENTPs use NI, and so we can. Do you think this is true, Carol?
Oh, I've misplaced small objects my entire life, but I thought that's because I didn't have enough, because I'm in my head instead of in the moment. conscious of things. But yes, doesn't that make sense? It would be the opposite. It would be sensing, the opposite of intuition, because I'm not fully present in the tangible world. Yeah, I'm always misplacing something. I wouldn't be late for meetings because, well, that's a Southern thing. That would be rude. But I understand about the getting distracted by things. But I use tools like, the timer and the clock on the calendar and the setting going off. I use tools to keep me from blowing the details. I use things to shore me up there.
Right, so this is the inflation avoidance block for ENTP. So you've got here with the trickster FI. And
now that's for ENTP, right?
Yeah, the ENTP.
Right.
It's a little bit.
Those are less inhibited by being rude. I mean, the prospect of being rude.
Ah, good point, Maria. Yeah. And that's just another example of how all the functions blend together. A little bit cheeky though about divine child attitude.
That is, I was reading that right now. It's pretty astonishing.
Yeah, socionics can be a little bit blunt about people's weaknesses.
Yeah, well, one thing I know about control NI also, like if it's specified as intuition of time, it's also how much time the control NI can give a person, like without any attempt to restrict it. They can just give you as much time as you possibly can ask for. It's on the sacrifice side of them, because if that's why they are often like running out of time, because when they see a person who needs their time, they usually give freely.
Ah. This is it for Carol. Do we have about 40 minutes left?
40? No, I have about 15 minutes left.
Right. Okay. So we'll try and get through all of these. So this is the control TE for INTP. Do you think that's true for? Apparently, the INTPs out there, they love that bit. They love the TE plus. This description like really gets to their core issue.
Yes.
One INTP female wrote, "This video is orgasmic." Yeah, and Wojtek Muller, master's degree in computational physics, he said that the TE plus was gold.
Well, I think my problem is, it's not so much that I don't possess the energy or organizational skills. It's kind of more that I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. Like, what if I'm just spinning my wheels for nothing? And maybe that more relates to number 2, where I'm worried my analysis won't have practical applications.
Right.
Or I'll kind of know, like I know I should take some action, but there's like 3 or 4 different actions I can take, and I'm not sure which action might bring me the best result. So then I don't do anything because I don't want to, I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to get a bad result. I don't want to do it for nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of paralyzing.
Right.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah, what book is this, Ben?
This is, well, I call it the psychology of individuation because, my INTP preferences. But it's psychological types. And in the original translation, it said psychological types or the psychology of individuation. I like to call it psychology of individuation because he explains that these types came into being and the individuation happens within a society.
So we're talking about Jung, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Jung. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And so his thought process would be that, well, if you had these 16 people from birth in a completely different society, say 50,000 years ago, then the types wouldn't be the same as what they are now. because they would individuate within a completely different society.
And with different technologies available and at a different level of just trying to struggle to survive. That kind of makes sense.
Jeff would say, though, that he's encountered ESFP people from different cultures, and it's just that they express their preferences differently. So it's just in a less rebellious way.
I could see a more cooperative and less individualistic culture the cultural pressure would be to do it in a less in your face way.
Yeah, so this is about, this control function, the BB opposing personality, it's actually in the Carl Jung thing a little bit there. He talks about this process running in the background. Right, so it is, and we can't spend that much time on this, folks, because we've only got a certain amount left, but we got here. Right, so we've got control function. Thus, the two standpoints are incessantly at war. So, extroverted thinking seems to have... Right, I mean, look at that, INTP. He thinks that TE is dull and banal. But it's... Here we go, the shadow effect. Right, this is pretty much it. So this is like the control function. Either senses the other as an encroachment, and hence a sort of shadow effect is produced, wherein either type reveals to the other its least favorable aspect. The subjectively oriented thinking that appears quite arbitrary. All right, so the TE Dom might see it like that, while the extroverted thinking seems to be dull and banal. So this is the thing that's going on in the background. These are Dario's books. These are some definitions of the functions. TTT, intuition of time. A function that manifests in contemplative wait-and-see behavior. Right, we'll try and get through these quickly because we've got about 5 minutes left. So, right. Carol, how do you rate on that?
Oh, yeah, I do that.
Right. Yep. And then we've got number 2.
I do the first one, profound realization. I'm not sure I push my mind to envision a solution to a problem that hasn't come up yet. I don't think I plan. Well, I mean, I try to plan out, you know, I have a path and I go a certain distance down the path trying to foresee what might happen, but I don't think I'm good at planning for a problem that I can't see yet.
Also, Dario does have INTJ preferences, and remember that Kersey wrote about the contingency planning, so could be Dario influence, that one. INTJs probably do that thing there. And then what about this one at the bottom?
No, INFJs do it as well.
Okay.
Just sin.
Okay, have some extra NI points.
I think I do the synthesis thing.
Right. Yeah, I'm not so sure that the synthesize a new idea that transcends various opposing points of view. I think that is more the form of cognition that ENFPs and INTPs share, rather than something that's inherent to NI. That's just maybe a little bit of a difference between socionics and the way Dario has defined it here.
I feel like as an ENFP, I am condemned to always be able to see something on both sides. It's like I see it, said, yeah, but I can also see it's like a kind of curse to be able to see both sides.
In fact, Linda Behrens, she always does that example, and Victor does the same example of looking at something from one angle and you see a circle, from another angle and you see like a skyscraper, and then you put them together and you see a cylinder. Right then, so the reason why we've got about 5 minutes left, so we don't need that. That can be paused. That's just my speculation about the perceiving functions and the way they're arranged. So people can pause that.
Okay, see that about often said any types live in an alternate universe? I think I live in the universe where, but I think this is, you know, extrovert intuition paired with introverted feeling. I live in a universe where we've all made it better and it's all going to work out and we're all together and we're going to solve this thing. I don't live in the here and now because the here and now is really messy and problematic, and I don't have to live there.
So do you think the NFPs live in more of the alternate universe when you've got a president like Donald Trump? Or no comment?
No, I think we live where we live because that's where we live and that's who we are. I don't think it has anything to do with him.
Right, okay, fair enough. Right. Right. That's something about SINI comfort zone. People can pause that. We got to go. There's a few more things here with the control. This is going to be ENFJ. So, and we're looking at FI plus. Do you think this is true for ENFJ, Carol?
Yeah, actually, let's ask Maria. I don't have a lot of experience with ENFJ. There are not that many of them, and I have much more experience with INFJ. So, do you, Maria?
Well, I do, and I think Ben, is this my translation?
Yes. Oh no, actually, it might be Lena's. I'll just have a look. I think it's yours because we cut it down a bit, if you remember. You gave the example of somebody. I think you gave the example. Yeah, this bit here where you talked about somebody at the middle of a gay rights walk. I think you added that.
Yeah, this is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do have experience with them, and also many of the ENFJ are in high visibility positions because that's where they like to be.
Right.
So we can also draw from like public figures.
Well, Oprah's a famous ENFJ, but I don't see her on a daily basis. Sorry, I could not resist that. And I love Oprah. I'm all about Oprah.
Right then. And so, as we've done before, SOCIONICS FI is it's ethics of relations, and then accompanying that, you tend to get values.
Are we talking about control function right now? I was just trying to understand the question.
Right, yeah, I was just wondering if you think... Well, yeah, I was asking Carol if she thought that this was true in ENFJs. Then she said that she didn't have much experience of ENFJs. And then she asked you, Maria, what you think of it. And then you might think, well, here's the translation.
No. I was going to add that they usually have no problem getting along with people because that's the FE part. But sometimes they kind of have to fake being interested in the person.
Right.
In the FI way, they need to kind of make up this part that they actually care because their mind is mostly busy with the extroverted feeling stuff.
Ben, I would like to add what Bibi says about extroverted introverted feeling. He said someone who leads or first or auxiliary position is with extroverted feeling, that they are so focused outward with the feeling function.
Yeah.
They can have a hard time deciding what they really like or what they really prefer. Whereas introverted feeling is all about importance and valuing and what value something has. As someone with introverted feeling, it's kind of clear as rain to me. And it's always amazing to me that my extrovert, I've seen what Bibi said true in my extroverted feeling friends. I have one INFJ friend who said, if you look around my house, there are all these different types of furniture that we've gotten at different times for different reasons. She said, I don't even know what style of furniture I really like. And that's astonishing to me as someone who uses introverted feeling. But I think Bibi's right, and it makes sense. He said if they're using so much energy projecting it outward, they don't have a lot of time to develop the inward feeling.
Right. So a lot of ISFJs and INFJs can resemble Enneagram Type 9. And as you know, Enneagram Type 9s are like that, where they sort of repress their own feelings and are too much other focused. Because I remember reading through the E9 profile and thinking, well, this really does resemble and correspond with INFJ and ISFJ. So this is what FE minus is like in INFP. Do Do you think that that is true, Carol, that the INFP does not like loud compliments? Because I think that's true.
INFP?
Yeah.
Don't we have an INFP here?
Well, Sana is an MBTI, but I.E.E. and SOCIONICS. I don't know. She might secretly like it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, which system are we talking about?
This is the Control FE and INF in EII.
Yeah, I'm not EII though.
Yeah, I know. IEI. But
So who are we
INFP.
talking about here? Is this the
INFPs.
8th function for who?
INFP is using the MBTI code.
Okay. That's their 5th function.
Yes.
Okay. The opposing personality
Yeah.
is what BB would call it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'd have to ask someone with that preference. I'm not
Okay.
that skilled with that.
Okay. The next one is this is going to be somebody who's leading with NI, and I'm going to TE. I think this is INFJ. I think this is you, Jonathan. So do you think this is true?
Sorry. What you looking at? The NE or the T?
Any, because it's a control function we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, he says, does that correlate with you?
Curious is a soft spot for the new and unusual things. Yes, it's definitely true. Will easily see through attempts to hide or fake something. I like to think so. I don't know how successful I am, but I suppose. People also has an humble and inflated view of his capabilities and talents. Well, I am pretty awesome, but I don't like to brag about it. While pushing those
Present moment accepted.
oscillates so in the present moment I'm bragging. Later on, I'll be going, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." While pushing
Jonathan, what's your PhD in?
My PhD is in being incredible.
And we've done a hangout recently where we went through this with Sana, and she pretty much agrees with this. Is that right, Sana?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So, Carol, you know a ton of INFJs. Does this match them? This NE minus for them? Control NE minus.
I see. Yeah, well, that number 3, I don't know that I see INFJs being over inflated. They really seem to be kind of humble.
Maybe that's an
me.
internal thing. Maybe that's
It's
an
internal.
Well, we keep the inflated thing to ourselves. It kind of comes and
Apart
goes.
from John.
Okay.
Apart from me.
Yes, they are. Seeing these are my friends. They have a soft spot for the new and unusual. They kind of consider me new and unusual, and they kind of like me. So yes, I would say that's true.
Right.
Easily see through attempts to hide or fake things. I want to ask something about that. I mean, I lead with this. I'm too trusting, and I tend to see the best in people. And then I tend to realize later, oh my gosh, I got the wool pulled over on my eyes on that. So I'm wondering if INFJs are better at seeing through that than I am. Are y'all like less naturally trusting so people don't kind of fool you? I kind of see the good in people and tend to think they're all right until proven otherwise. I trust until proven otherwise.
Do you have experience of being like mistaken about people? Is that what you say?
Yes.
Like you choose people and trust them, and then you get disappointed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I cannot. I'm very choosy about people I deal with, and I'm usually very, very selective. I'm very selective. I deal with very few people, and I cannot make myself to get close to the people who kind of have that equality for me. It's like we usually have a like natural feeling for like when somebody is full of it, when the person is not really trustworthy.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it's when somebody is fooling themselves. Like someone came up with a business proposition and was telling me how it was going to go and how hard he was going to work on this and how this was going to fly. And later I came to the conclusion, I don't think that person was intentionally lying or misleading to me at all. I think that person was not being realistic and honest with themselves. So they came across as believable because they totally believed what they were saying. Does that make sense? And I bought into it. Over a period of time, nothing came to fruition. But looking back on it, I don't sense any intention to deceive. I think that person deceived themselves, and I didn't see through that.
I see. What I was talking about was I remember getting a comment from one of the friends of mine who came to my birthday party and saw a bunch of people who he has basically never seen before. But after some interaction with them, he was struck with like how much of a good person everybody was. So he said that I must have some filter.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, so this appears to give an INTJ a superpower. ILIs can instantly see what makes a person tick, what the person is about, therefore, and in what ways the person is likely to behave. Jonathan might think that that sentence is lifted from the INFJ profile, but that might be overly generous.
Well, the difference may be that INTJ may use it for hiring purposes.
Ah.
I found it kind of interesting because I'd always expected the FE-pores to be bad at reading people, and I've seen INTJs who do seem bad at reading people, and I've seen INTJs who come to the same conclusions as I do about people, or similar conclusions. But there's often something slightly off about it, so it's all.
Maybe, as Maria says, it relates to certain aspects of the person that they can see well. Maybe in terms of how efficient they are.
Well, it can even just be the difference between an INTJ who, ignores their FE break or deals with it. If they incorporate it, then their insights get spot on. But if they don't, then
I think what it could be is a bit of functional determinism by Victor, where he's got FI is very sensitive in INTJ, and I imagine maybe an INTJ that's really in touch with their FI, like Dario, maybe they can see a similar thing in other people.
Possibly.
What do you think, Al?
I have actually had a couple of I think INTJs. My experience with INTJs seems to be they have a deeply hidden sense of spirituality that you almost never get to, but once you really get to know them, you find out there is a deeply spiritual sense, and there's a real, that FI in the third position has a strong ethical quality to it, I believe. That's been my sense of them.
Yeah, launch function is everybody's focal point, so that gives many INTJ the moral lens for seeing everything.
Mura has said that they can sometimes act like INFP, so an INTJ when meeting someone, if they're going to be open, they might talk about their values and principles, things like that.
If I could say something about ENTJs for a moment, I have been astonished in my life. I mean, I've met, ENTJs who run over you like a Sherman tank, but I have also met some who had an astonishing ability to do the FE thing and be gracious and be very thoughtful and be very social equality, social justice kind of. Of course, his mother had been not a Shaker, a Quaker, had been a Quaker and brought him up that way. And here he was an ENTJ at the director level, and he and his son were going around taking a basket of home-baked cookies to every one of the building receptions. They made around that morning and then around that afternoon because there were 2 shifts. And here was this ENTJ that I'd witnessed over and over again doing incredibly thoughtful to other people things. And I wasn't expecting that from ENTJs, but I've run into it more often than I thought possible.
Was this person over 35? Because then they can, as Dario said, they go a little bit more like their dual, maybe like ISFP.
Yeah, they were at least over 35, absolutely.
Right. And do you think he had some because as you know, with the ISFP, you've got the FI principles blocked with taking action.
Yeah, but if he was ENTJ, FI is in the inferior, so I don't think that's being very helpful. I think it's coming.
Yeah, but as Dario said, like Dario's in a mode where he's like, he's going ESFP. He wants to develop that part of himself, and ENTJs can go like ISFP.
Oh, okay.
Right. So this is for ESFP. So their TI is. You should try doing a SOCIONICS hangout with Jeff. That's a barrier to overcome. He did it with me out of kindness. So Jeff had a lot of resistance to David Kersey's work because of this natural thing against the theories, and it was only because it described him so well.
From your perspective, Ben, from your perspective, it described him well.
No, from Jeff. No, because Jeff actually said that about the book. He did a video about it where he said because his mother gave him the test when he was about 18, and Jeff was like, "How dare this person in this book think they know me?"
That's right.
And of course, he read the ESFP profile and he said, "Well, everything that has to do with what the ESFP wants, he related to, but not necessarily the specific behaviors of being the center of the party." And Jeff would say, "Well, yes, I would love that, but don't always get the opportunity to act like this super ESFP description."
Right. Interesting.
Is it weird that as supposedly a TI lead that I actually relate to number 1 sometimes, believe it or not, and also to number 7. Maybe number 7 is coming from the NE. But sometimes, like number 1, well, I mean, especially if it's a new system I'm learning, I mean, I may not always know, what's crucial from what's minor until I kind of put it together for myself, and then I can kind of see, oh yeah, this is important, this is relevant, this is not.
But maybe it's because we're looking for that, though, Laura.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Well, where I would go there is where Behrens describes the behind-the-scenes interaction style, and INTP is behind the scenes, and it's an organic thing, and it gels when it gels, and you don't know when you're going to get enough information, but it all of a sudden gels and gets clear, and it's organic. It happens when it happens. You're on the receiving end of it, but you can't get clarity or see your way through it until it does gel. So until then, it's hard to tell what's important and what's not.
Right. And I read it. It was really interesting when I read about the behind the scenes style. They talk about them how they're always like integrating different inputs.
Mm-hmm. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
Right,
cool, because I teach interaction styles. I just taught it to a group of Arctic scientists. That was my own Big Bang Theory class. It was fabulous. But I absolutely love interaction styles. It makes so much sense to me. That makes me feel good that you resonate with behind the scenes.
Right. So, Sana, that's the same as David Kersey's. And I was trying to ask his son, like, what do you call them? Because, like, if you don't want to call them interaction styles, you call them interaction variants. So it's like, I just thought they might have their own name for them. Now, in the timeline of things, it does look like Linda Behrens did expand upon it, because Kersey only sort of wrote about it in his final book, which came out in about 2010. And Linda published other books where she did interaction styles and released that before then.
Well, I mean, he did temperament. She did interaction style, which comes out of the social styles reverse of the social styles research of the 20s. It was her version of social styles, which is different from temperament.
Yeah, but Kersey had he had initiators, contenders, collaborators, accommodators. And so you can match those up with the Behrens ones. But I would say I had a look at the timeline, and it did look like, well, of course, Kersey came up with role informing and role directing in the 1980s, and then Linda Behrens did expand upon it, and then she even did this big book, Interaction Essentials, and then so what it appears from the timeline is then, so I want to give Linda some credit, but then say that Kersey came back and wrote about it as well, but hardly anyone buys this book because really it's just for INTPs. This personality book.
Oh, let me see it. Personality, Kersey? Is that what?
Personology.
Personology. Oh, that's interesting. I don't even know about that book. That's interesting.
That's what I mean. What they said on Amazon, only buy this book if you're an INTP.
Only buy this.
How do you pronounce it after all? Kersey or Kersey?
Kersey. Did I say Kersey by mistake? Yeah, Kersey.
I never quite know how to spell Kersey. Like, is it the I?
Yeah, no, it takes ages. It took me ages. K-E-I-R-S-E-I. Yeah, I used to make that mistake. So apparently this is for ISFJ. So do folks
Wait a minute. It's called personology?
Yes, personology. Person and then ology.
That's hysterical. I've got to look at that.
Yeah.
And not just that, but he calls them personologists.
Yeah. Well, my folks are quiet for a minute. I wanted to make a comment about ENTJs. In humanitarian socionics, they may talk a lot about semi-dual shift and how a person can be known as his semi-dual shift persona. For instance, ENTJ's semi-dual shift is into INFP, and that's how they often become known as like a humanist activists. Many charities are founded by ENTJs.
Yeah, I can make that because also they develop that bit of FI and then they're good at organizing things. And it's also good for their reputation. So I'll just put that bit in there because sometimes they can have a bit of E3 in there. All right. So this is for ISFJ. Keeps track of hostility and confrontation. It would be hard to know because they might not tell about that, so it goes on inside their heads. Tries to present aggressive outbursts in his circle. You're going to say something there, Laura?
Well, yeah, I relate to a lot of this actually, and I'm wondering if that's kind of, I don't know, true. I don't know, true for other INTPs or people that have control in that its position. Yeah, especially the hostility and confrontation. Yeah, preventing aggressive outbursts. It definitely actively condemns obsession, rudeness, and coercion.
Do you understand how to be cunning and diplomatic?
Somewhat. I don't know if I'm totally confident in my skills there, but most people think I'm a diplomatic person. I don't know about cunning. I don't know. If engaged in a serious competition, looking for a way to get out of it unscathed. Well, I rarely enter serious competition to begin with.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was in a serious competition, I think I would try to stick it out and do the best I can. I don't know.
So you can see
but the first part of it is very, very true for me. Yeah, I hate rudeness, I hate aggression, I hate hostility. And I think that's why sometimes people will mistype me as a feeling type or as a type 9 in the Enneagram, and you know, because of some of that.
Also, might be because
I think some of that just might be that SC is my painful function, my break function, and maybe it's more relating to that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and also interaction style, like both are accommodating, and maybe female INTPs could more develop that way to get some ISFJ traits, because you know it's bound up with the role of the protector, which is.
Behrens feels very accommodating behind the scenes to me. She's got this very gentle openness. It's really, you know, compared to my NE bouncing off the walls, Robin Williams stuff sometimes. Behrens, I like Behrens a lot. She can feel, I love that behind the scenes quietness and softness. It's like a welcome oasis for me.
Right, and this is the final one. This is now this is for SLI, which is a type that doesn't really line up with, but I think this block actually lines up quite well with ISTJ.
Yeah.
So you got this bit there in for the FE plus, impressionable but psychologically closed. So do you think a lot of ISTJs are like that, Carol? Psychologically closed?
Oh, duh. Sorry.
Actually, I can relate to a lot of this one as well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely the first one. Second one, it depends on what the weaknesses are. If I think the weaknesses are going to work against me in some way, I'll hide them. Although I prefer to be able to be free to be vulnerable and express my weaknesses and have people accept me for who I am. That's what my preference is, but sometimes I can't always be that way. Yes, number 3, if I can, I try to avoid it. Number 4, yeah, most of the time. Well, I can do it, but it's definitely out of my comfort zone.
Actually, if we can speak to,
I can be agile and quick if I need to be, but I don't like to have to rush through things. I like to be able to take my time. Number 6, no, not really. Number 7, yes. So
if we can look back at number 4, I'm thinking that beautifully explains the ISTJ Queen Elizabeth II's facial expression during Harry's entire wedding.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Every time the camera was on her face, it was nowhere near a smile. It was just stone faced the whole time.
Yeah, and that's and this is something this is the bit, because INTJ is also FE break. And also, this is not exactly the strength of Hillary Clinton, this sort of like natural warmth.
Al Gore, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yes, Al Gore. Yes, he had that.
That was their downfall, and what they always got criticized for. And I look at it through the lens of psychological type and go, guys, they can't help it. Stop attacking them. They really can't help this.
I think what they got to do, the way they can be charismatic is just by being funny in a sarcastic way. Once they develop, and Al Gore got a bit like that in more in later life, where he used his ironic sense of humor.
Supposedly in person, he was always relaxed and funny and comfortable, but he stepped into a mask when he went into his public stance, and that was the downfall.
Yeah.
But his wife said he was always a different person in person. He was not the way the public perceived him.
So, Carol, looking at the SE control, do you think that's true of certain ISTJs you've known?
Oh, I'm thinking it's nailing it. Yeah. Both of these I see very clearly correlate with ISTJs I've known. Absolutely.
But I'm just wondering why I relate to a lot of these points on this list. Is that a normal thing, or is there some other factors in there?
Well, the other ones are like the one we showed previously was ISFJ, and so you've got this thing of SI avoiding the
one too.
Yeah, you don't like the challenges and the confrontation, so that's a theme. And
well,
also
and this
that
is
goes to 6.
So this is FE and SE in shadow.
Yes.
So that might be why you're corresponding to these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, did you say FE and SE in shadow?
Yeah.
Yeah, break and control. Yeah.
But I mean, but for an INTP, I thought the FE was not in the shadow.
It's in
inferior. It's an inferior function, but the shadow really begins with the inferior function because we have so much less control over that. It really begins in the 4th, continues down through the others.
Yeah, I was thinking shadow was just 5 through 8. And
no, in Jungian terms, it really starts with that 4th function because we have so little control. But that's why Jung says the 4th function is the gateway to spirituality because we don't have control over it, and that's why it functions as the gateway.
Howard, does this describe you well?
I'm making my way through this. Scroll it up. I can't see it for the people's faces at the bottom.
Right, okay. That might be better.
There we go.
I don't think they need an inspiration generator. They are an inspiration generator.
We can't avoid it. Oh my God, I love quotes. Oh gosh, I love quotes. And ideas, just you can't stop the ideas. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah,
Right. And then
I
that's
like
just,
that colored. I like that colored brain too.
I like
yeah,
it
okay.
too. Yeah. You know,
Right.
auxiliary, any, yeah.
Yep. Right. And then there's this now, basically a nice short version. And then, yes, Friedrich Nietzsche, INTJ a lot. All right.
He's not like totally sane, right?
Not at the end, no.
It went badly for him at the end, right?
Yeah, that's when he got the big mustache, apparently. So, Sana, do you relate to that, or is it a little bit too mystical?
Well, I mean, yeah, background processes of consciousness, all that stuff. But I do think there's a tendency to make it super mystical when it's really just your unconscious making connections.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then what happens is something that will then pop into your mind, and then sometimes you can work it out backwards how you got there. Is that your experience?
Yeah. Over time, more often than not. It depends on the kind of insight.
Yeah, Carl Jung described it as an unconscious chain of associations, and that you can sometimes work. He said that in the interview. So, folks, if you look on YouTube, there's Carl Jung on introverted intuition. It's like a 10-minute video we've been talking about.
Well, sometimes the insight itself actually contains all the steps.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh.
I would envy that. Ben Dario Nardi says that that INTJ doesn't lead with the rational function, extroverted judging. They lead extroverted thinking. They lead with intuition.
Yeah.
He said what really happens is whatever floats up from introverted intuition, they use their extroverted thinking to justify and explain. He said the justify and explain comes second for us. He said we accept what floats up from introverted intuition, and then we justify and explain it with our next function.
Especially if it makes money.
There you go.
Right.
Okay.
So
I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I do have to go onward now, but Ben, this has been delightful. Thanks to everyone for coming and contributing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, for the final hangout. You made it through all eight functions, so you can see that SOCIONICS is, it's got some good ideas in there. Some bits might be a little bit idiosyncratic, but overall it's got little ideas that you can pinch.
Very good. Now, wait a minute. I've got a smile thing going on here.
Yeah, this is something that's a little bit cheeky, but this is not from SOCIONICS. This is just something I thought was interesting. And so this maybe a little bit relates to the Hillary, but it's a little bit cheeky. It's from a different site that's maybe going a little bit too far with the facial typing.
No, I really believe it.
Pardon? Might be.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Because there is a site where you can submit a video. You can submit a video clip, and they'll type you, based on your facial expressions and your hand movements. And they gave me ISTJ on that.
Ooh.
Oh, listen, I've got to go try that. I have to at least go try that. I would love to know that. Catherine Favre talks.
They said my type was very clear, and they said I had that FI snarling smile. They mentioned that.
Oh, I'll put you on the screen there. Look at that smiley face there from Nora. That is not an ISTJ.
Well, they thought it was, so.
Well,
no.
We've got 3 viewers. So, viewers, I hope you've liked this. Oh yes, Carol has to go. I think we went through all the control positions. So, Carol, now you've been through Model G, as a closing comment, do you think that it pretty much, a lot of it matches up with the Beeb model?
Well, I think you're giving me more credit than perhaps possible. Because remember, every time we do something, I ask you to translate it for me into my language of either 8 function or temperament or barren stuff or BB. But I have seen a lot of things that yes, once you translate it for me and say this is where we're talking about, absolutely, I think they're on to some of the same things. I may not agree on everything, but I think they're on to some of the same patterns, for example.
Yeah, and that's what I say about socionics is not all the types correspond, but pretty much, you know, the themes do correspond very well for the intuitive types. And there are some things in there for the sensing types, particularly when it like picks up on the FI break in ESTP. And although that is in Kurz's profile where he mentions that their wives can feel like trophies and a negotiable commodity, and there are things in there that match. It's just the sensory introverts tend to not match well.
Interesting.
So Carol has to go. She's being southern polite in.
Thank you.
So bye, Carol.
Thank you all. Enjoyed it.
Okay, and we'll have a little bit of a wind down now. So, is there anything else you would like to say, Laura?
No, just thank you very much for putting this on.
So you've now because you're very much aware of Model A, and now you've become more aware of Model G.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they compare from your point of view? Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Well, I think most people come from a Model A background. So most of the literature I read is on Model A. So I think it might be a little easier for people to grasp because the materials are more accessible. But I think Model G kind of is actually maybe closer to reality, or at least closer to my own personal observations of how things are.
Yeah, and I just think it's a little bit easier for people because if you know about the Freudian model, then the ego, superego, id, and superid can maybe help a little bit. But there's little problems in that where it doesn't quite fit, and you have this stuff about the mental ring and the vital ring, where it's supposed to be unconscious. I'm like,
I mean, I'm conscious of all the functions
in
the vital ring.
I'm not.
I think the difference, though, is maybe I'm more conscious more of the time of the functions in the mental ring. Now that I can see, and kind of like mental is more like the thinking and the input, and the vital ring is kind of more the output. I mean, yeah, I can kind of see that working, but I don't think the vital ring functions are unconscious because I'm aware of them.
And
yeah, but are you aware of doing them, or are you just aware of the results?
Both.
I noticed that usually the mental ring is more present in the dreams that I see.
Mm-hmm. In dreams? Like when you're dreaming at night and you recall your dream?
Yeah. Well,
mental ring?
I can say for sure that when I see a dream, I see like as a dynamic type, I see some like sequences of actions and how fast or like how in which sequence everything was done, and like some emotional atmosphere and sensations. From that I can draw conclusions about some possibilities.
Sure.
Eventually I can draw conclusions about possibilities or relations,
so
or importance of something, but I don't see them directly.
What's your socionics type?
INFJ.
Okay, so that is I.E.E. in socionics?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm more of a static type because I kind of see, sometimes it's not always the sequence, but it's like these various pictures that I see, the vivid imagery that I'll see. But I do kind of recall a lot of feelings and emotions. That does come up in my dreams. But but that would be related to FE, which is in the vital ring. And
I compared my dreams to one dream that a static friend told me, and it was about the way he related it was he saw a celebration about several small countries uniting into one, and it was and he heard a very interesting music, and like there was some spectacle going on, and later he was trying to recall the ideas in that music. So it was about different categories. It was powerful, interesting. It was about a system emerging.
Just for those people,
totally different from what the language of my dreams.
And in my dreams, there's often a lot more SE present, kind of like I'll dream like where I'm kind of forced to confront people, or you know, or it's more aggressive than I might do in real life. I don't know if that's common. Or one's break function come out in a dream.
You know, you said that about aggression, and I keep forgetting that Enneagram 6 for you, and so that's going to be played up, and probably why you could relate to the
kind of like confronting fears and things like that. I think that is a common theme.
Yeah, a lot of people watching this might not be familiar with Model A if they're coming over from MBTI. And what Victor did is he switched the creative and the demonstrative, so that might throw a couple of people off, a few people off. And we do have 2 viewers at the moment, because when I was hosting these hangouts on the other, because I got my live streaming ability back, we weren't getting the live viewers when it was on the other channel. Right, so as you can see there, folks, that's Model A. We're gonna go off air now and have a chat.